Okay, ladies and gentlemen, well, we're finally here, the last video in the Fullbring series. That only took a couple extra months than I would have originally liked, but hey, whatever, we're here and that's all that matters, and then we can move on to some other Bleach-related discussion series. Maybe I'll talk about the Vice Captains finally, I don't know, but today we're ending out the Fullbringers of Execution, or Execution Fullbringers, with Jackie Tristan and her Fullbring, Dirty Boots. It doesn't sound as cool when I say it that way. I mean, I know they're originally based on English phrases and terms and, like, sayings, you know, like time tells no lies. It just sounds cooler when you say it in Japanese with the accent, you know? Time tells no lies, or dati butsu. Like these. These are some dati butsu. These are my fishing boots. I caught a bass 2 weeks ago. It was fun. Alright, so there you go. I'm gonna set those down on the towel on the floor because I don't want to get dirt all over my room. Alright, so Jackie! Okay, to be fair, a lot of the Fullbringers, I feel like Kubo probably wanted to go a little bit into more detail with their backstory. Giriko's past, Yukio's past, Riruka's past, and Jackie's past are all crammed into one chapter. So, you definitely get the idea maybe Kubo wanted to expand on that a little more. And it also doesn't help much that by the time the Thousand Year Blood War arc rolls around, yeah, we get a little bit more screen time from Yukio and Riruka, and Ginjo is there, and Tsukishima. They show up at the very end very briefly. Don't really get much more from Giriko, but at least Giriko shows up in the final arc. Well, at least we see him from behind. That's more than we get from Jackie. Jackie does not show up in the final arc at all. I think her and Moe Shishigawara are the only Fullbringers that don't show up. Although, Jackie did lose her Fullbring at the end of the battle. However, unlike Giriko, who lost it and died because, well, Giriko drew the short straw, he had to fight Kenpachi. I mean, what do you expect there? Jackie was able to survive because of Renji. Renji saved her. However, she lost her Fullbring at the end of it, so she just kind of went off on her own way. I think Yukio might have mentioned something about coming to work for me, but I really don't think that, that ended up, panning out. Although it might have been mentioned in the Can't For Your Own World novels, I'm not sure. But Jackie did play an integral role during the training of Ichigo's Fullbring, because Ichigo has what is known as a clad-type Fullbring, okay? There's a bunch of different kind of subclasses of Fullbring, right? Like Giriko's, for example, is a stopwatch that allows him to set timers on things. Riruka's is one that shrinks things down into other things, and she permits things to enter certain other objects, like dollhouses and such. But then you get Fullbrings like Chad's and Jackie's, which actually, they wear them sort of like armor. And in the case with Jackie, turns her into a badass, sexy biker girl. That's basically what happens. The source of her Fullbring is, of course, her boots, but whenever she activates her Dati boots, her boots become longer, kind of clip onto her belt. She gets a badass scarf and a biker cap. Alright, and later on, when she gets a power-up from Ichigo's Fullbring, she gets like cloth and furs like covering her whole body and gets a motorcycle engine just strapped to her chest that like she can rev it up. I love that scene where Renji and Jackie were fighting, and the little chat room that Yukio creates for them is like a very rainy, very muddy kind of terrain, like a wasteland, to better augment Jackie's ability, because in order to activate Jackie's Fullbring, she has to have some type of dirt on her Dirte Butsu, and it could be anything. It could be blood, it can be actual mud or earth, a nail polish. Nail polish was always a pain. I worked in retail for 7 years at Dollar Tree. Every now and then, somebody would drop some freaking nail polish on the floor, and I had to okay, give me the acetone. I have to go and pour freaking nail polish all over the floor tonight to clean it up. Yeah, that was a fun part of that job. But it could be anything, right? It could be anything as long as it stains the boots permanently, or like at least the muck or the dirt stay clinging to the boots. All right? And so the more dirt that is on the boot, the more strong she becomes. It's just basically, defense, offense kind of augmentation. She's faster, she's stronger, she's awesome, right? Okay, cool. And so, Chad also has a clad type with his, his right and left arms and stuff like that, because the conduit for Chad's Fullbring is like quite literally his skin, but Jackie's, it's like a piece of apparel that she wears. And then Ichigo's is his combat pass, which in the first stage just creates like Zangetsu's guard that he uses to fight, but then by the second stage, when they're fighting in that aquarium, that's when Ichigo truly understands the true purpose of it, where he literally wears his power, and that calls back to his Bankai, because when Ichigo goes into his Bankai, Tensa Zangetsu, really, well, I don't know exactly for the final version of Tensa Zangetsu, the final Bankai that we saw during the Thousand Year Blood War arc, because that one was a little bit different, but at least when it came to his original Tensa Zangetsu that he used during the Soul Society arc, and his upgraded one that he used, at the end of the Fullbringer arc, he gets that badass cloak. He gets the cloak that he wears, and that cloak is actually part of his Bankai. It's not just a fashionable accessory. This is pointed out during the Huecamundo arc after he's finished fighting Ukiura. He only has like one sleeve of it remaining, and he's like, this basically represents, you know, how much current Ryatsu I have. Like, Orihime was able to heal my physical wounds after fighting Ukiura, but in terms of Ryatsu, this is pretty much all I had, right? Also makes you kind of think how it would have gone between Ichigo and Yami if Ichigo truly had all of his Ryatsu back, if he would be able to, like, take down Yami or, like, decapitate him in one hit. Who knows, right? So that's how his Bankai works, so it would stand to reason that's also how his Fullbring worked as well. And so Jackie kind of gave Ichigo a hint into really awakening his second stage of his Fullbring, which allowed him to have his, like, his Ryatsu kind of Shihakusho. He was, like, cloaked in that, and he made a sword kind of out of his arm, alright? That was actually, honestly, like, I love the final stage of Ichigo's Fullbring, where he basically becomes, like, a, you know, a Super Sentai, like a Power Ranger or Kamen Rider or something, but I also really like the second stage, because he has, like, this, it's like a shadow, like, he's wearing the darkness aura of his Ryatsu just spewing off of him, and he just creates a sword with his arm. Sounds very cool, right? And I'm sure Kubo had a lot of fun drawing that form of Ichigo there. One of the most unique ones in the story, I'd say. But then after that, Jackie kind of gets knocked out after that training because Ichigo kind of went too crazy there, and his powers were kind of going out of control. So the aquarium is burst open, Jackie loses consciousness, and then Ichigo goes to try to fight Tsukishima. It wasn't long after that when Tsukishima finally lifts his spell using Book of the End, and all of the Fullbringers return to their original selves, and then the whole, you know, the double cross happens, and then Ginjo shows up and everything, and we pretty much just cut to the final battles of the arc involving, you know, all the Fullbringers, including Jackie. Jackie is, of course, present through all this stuff, but she doesn't really do anything specifically, you know, toward one character. She's just kind of there, and like, oh, Ichigo's back, let's fight him, okay, let's go, and that's pretty much it. And then, of course, the Shinigami all show up, and then Ginjo, you know, gives Ichigo's Fullbring to all of the other Fullbringers. They get an upgrade. Yukio taps on his PSP, opens up chat rooms for everybody. Giriko gets sliced in half. And then, of course, all the fights are on in earnest. Like I said, I really liked the exchange between Renji and Jackie. However, it was really more of just like a flex to show how strong Renji had become over the course of the time skip. And this is something Kubo even mentioned. I think it was in like one of the chapter notes or something. He's like, you know, ever since the events of, you know, the fake Karakura arc with Aizen and everybody, Renji and Toshiro and Kenpachi and Byakuya and Soifone and Ikaku and Yumichika, all the Shinigami, they've been training for the last 17 months over the course of a time skip to deal with characters on Aizen's level. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that they can deal with characters on Aizen's level, but the point is, the last 17 months since Renji was, you know, the way we saw him during Fake Karakura, Renji has been training like a madman, probably putting himself through some really, really intense training regimens there, and so by the time he's facing off against Jackie, even though they're in Yukio's chat room, and her power is completely dependent on how filthy she is, and she has all of the dirt around her, and it's raining, and then she has the upgraded form of her Fullbring with the bike engine, and you know, she revs it up, and like the smog comes out of the exhaust pipe, and the oil and the smog, you know, clings to her body, so her whole body is covered in filth, and that increases her power exponentially, and she's like, let's go! And then what does Renji do? Renji just kind of like, well, no, she does get a kick in. Freaking Jackie jumps up, goes to do the kick with her boots. I would imagine because her power is focused around boots, kicks are kind of like them. I mean, she can punch really strong too, but you think kicks would be the main thing that she does. Goes to kick Renji. Renji just does the BAM! He just does the one hand, just like... And you know, it's Renji. Renji is not like a vindictive kind of character. Renji's not just like, oh, you think you're stronger than me? I'm gonna demolish you. No, Renji's just like, he walks into the chat room and he's there and he's like, this isn't gonna be a fight. This is not even gonna be even approaching a fight. I'll let you get the first hit in, you know, but just so you don't lose face, just so you're not like, but just to understand, you know, you're gonna hit me once, I'm gonna hit you once, and then that's gonna be it. That's gonna be the entirety of what this is going to be. So Jackie goes, kicks Renji, he just blocks it with his wrist and just, okay. And he doesn't release Zabimaru. He doesn't even fully pull it out of its scabbard. He just kind of takes the freaking, the hilt of Zabimaru in its sealed state and just boom, because Jackie's right in front of him, so he just boom, and just slams the edge of the hilt right into her stomach, and just boom, Okay, you're strong. Poof. And they also have like a back and forth of like, are you gonna take it easy on me because I'm a woman? And Renji's like, man, woman, doesn't matter. I'll fight anybody that comes and challenges me. You know, because that's the kind Renji is, right? Okay, so that's it. Now Renji did manage to get Jackie out of there because after Jackie was defeated, but she didn't die, the whole chat room is gonna kind of collapse, and they were kind of worried about like, well, okay, or both of them gonna die or what's up? But Renji managed to get Jackie, pull her out. However, it was because of I guess the resulting explosion, but also might result in her own perspective on this. Jackie ended up losing her Fullbring in the process. And this is something that, you know, all the Fullbringers were kind of modified by Tsukishima by his Book of the End to kind of like lament or hate their powers. That's what they told to Ichigo. Remember when Ichigo first arrived at Execution, he's like, you know, Ginjo and everybody were like, the reason we want you to get your Shinigami powers back, Ichigo, is because, you know, we can pour our Fullbrings into you and then we can return to being, you know, normal humans. That was the explanation that he gave, but I think in reality a lot of the Fullbringers actually enjoyed their powers. There were a few that maybe weren't as on board. I don't think Riruka was as happy with her abilities as others, but I don't think she hated them. Jackie, I believe, did straight up hate her ability, and we find out why, because we find out very briefly in that one chapter what the origin of her dirty butsu are, and there's you know, a lot of the other Fullbringers have some messed up backstories. You know, Yukio was a child that, you know, his parents didn't really pay a lot of attention to him, and he created fake parents, and he ended up robbing all of, you know, the money from his father's business, and eventually his parents ended up taking their own lives, so that was kind of grim. You know, Riruka was made fun of a lot, you know, growing up. You know, Chad had some harsh upbringings and stuff like that. But then you get to Jackie, and the Jackie's backstory is such, from the little that we understand. We don't exactly get a country of origin for Jackie. Like, we know Yukio is German in origin. Might have not have been born in Germany, but, you know, his name is German. I always assumed Jackie was from, like, Latin America. I always assumed maybe, like, even more South America, like Colombia, Venezuela, maybe even Brazil. That's where I always just... It was never confirmed one way or the other. That's just what I always, like, in my head canon, right? Maybe also even Mexico, because just Kubo really enjoys that kind of, you know, Mexican, Spanish aesthetic, given the fact of, like, the Espada and, you know, Chad's character and everything. So I always pictured her from coming somewhere around Latin America, though. When she was growing up, when she was a little girl, her father gave her a pair of boots, and she loved the boots. They were leather boots, and she would always clean them and make sure they were nice and clean. And she kind of knew that her father stole the boots and gave them to her as a gift, but she loved them so much she just kind of turned a blind eye to it. One day she comes home, though, and there is just blood everywhere. Her whole family is just massacred. Her brother is dead. Her brother's blood, I believe younger brother's blood, is the first thing that actually stains her boots. And also her father is dead as well, and it's explained because her father was moving merchandise on, like, the black market. It's implied that her father was either, maybe not like a drug lord, but maybe like, you know, worked for, like, a criminal organization or, like, a cartel or something, and because of his illicit, you know, business practices, doing stuff on the black market, or maybe like a drug cartel or something, he did something they weren't supposed to do, and then they sent like a hit squad to like wipe out their whole family or something. And then Jackie was away at the time. She comes back home to just see just bloodshed, and then she picks up her like brother's lifeless body, and like his blood gets on her boots, and then that's what awakened her Fullbring. So with a backstory like that, you can kind of see why she didn't care for her ability really much. I'm like, yeah, your entire family is dead, but you get super strength and super speed and a badass biker outfit. Even Steven, right? Like, no! So, after the battles are over, after Yukio is freed, Toshiro melts the ice and lets Yukio walk away. You know, Jackie runs into him, you know, as they're, like, walking down the street, and, you know, she says to Yukio, she's like, I found Giriko's body, I buried it with his pocket watch. If it was just my... Here's what she says. She's like, if it was just my power that I lost, and that was all it was, I don't think I'd be all that upset by it, but I kinda envy Giriko because Giriko was at least able to die with his Fullbring. And the way she explains this, because it's kind of contradictory, the way she explains it is like, if it wasn't for our Fullbrings, we would have never come together. And remember, Jackie especially. Jackie pretty much lost her entire family. She did. And so Execution kind of became her new family, right? Or rather, it was the closest thing to one that she had after what happened with her father and her brother and everything. So she's like, I didn't really like my Fullbring. Because imagine every single time she activated her Fullbring, she probably remembered the traumatic experience of coming back home and opening the door and seeing a freaking, like Friday the 13th Part 6 on the walls, like, yeah. So, she didn't like it, but she's like, at least it was able to, like, it was the defining thing. It was like the thread that pulled us all together. And now I don't have that anymore, so I kind of feel like part of me is gone. And, Yukio is just kind of like, well, you come work for my company, we're all going our separate ways, Giriko's dead, Ginjo's dead, Tsukishima's dead, don't know what's up with the middle school kid, Shishigawara, don't know where he's gonna go or what he's gonna do. Riruka already kind of left. I think at that point, Riruka was injured. She got taken back to Urahara's to be healed a little bit, and then she just went off on her own. And so, yeah, I would like to think, and it might have been something talked about in the Can't Fear Your Own World, maybe, but I like to think that Jackie at least did go with Yukio to at least, work for his company. I would at least hope, because at least, like, those can at least, like, they're still, like, they know each other previously, or Jackie could have just sent out on her own and, go on her own little adventure, as, like, she gets to be a normal human, because Yukio and Riruka, they still have their powers, all the, like, Ginjo and Tsukishima, they're dead, but they still have their Fullbrings. Jackie, I guess Moe Shishigawara, he still has his Fullbring, can't think of any reason why he would lose it, so Jackie's the only one that kind of gets, like, a free ticket here, and she's just kind of like, okay, reset, you're a normal human now, you don't have your power anymore. And in Bleach, honestly, that's something that's like, you know what? Just go off and do your own thing. You don't have to worry about being targeted by, like, hollows anymore. You don't have to worry about, like, the Soul Society messing with you. You're an ordinary human. So just go and live your life, live a ripe old age, die, go to the Soul Society. Maybe you'll be reunited with, like, Ginjo Tsukishima again and all that stuff, and, like, the people that you consider, like, the closest thing to a family, right? But yeah, that was Jackie's character. So she didn't really, I think, like, at the beginning she added some stuff, and then in the middle of the arc she's really not that relevant. And the fight with Renji and her didn't last very long, and at the very, very end she kind of, like, cues out the arc. She gives, like, an emotional speech that kind of, like, sets the tone for the ending of the Fullbring arc, and I like that. But yeah, that was Jackie, so I think that's a good time to end it here. Thanks for watching this series, everybody. Had a lot of fun doing it. Next time, I don't know. I gotta think hard about this next one, because Bleach anime is coming back in 2021. We don't know when in 2021. I like to think it's still set for next year. There's, like, this year's had a lot of complications, so maybe it got pushed back. But who knows? It could be in, I would say right now, the way I'm looking at it, and this is completely my own opinion, I'm not reading something on the internet, this is just my own opinion here, like, May or June, I'm thinking, like, the earliest. If it did come out earlier than that would maybe, I don't know, but I would be very surprised if it would be. I'm thinking, like, maybe a summer of next year release, or maybe even a fall of next year if it's going to happen. Or it might get pushed back to 2022. Be like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that happened in 2020, sorry, had to push things back, so now it's not coming out until, like, maybe January, February 2022. The point is, we're getting it. That's all that matters, right? It's like, hey, Bleach anime is coming back, but it's not going to come out until 2025. I'd be like, okay, that sucks. That really sucks, but at least we're getting it, right? It's not going to be that long, obviously, but yeah, I think it might be finally time to talk about the vice captains, because that's something I get recommendations for a lot. Talked about all the Espada, talked about all the Fullbringers, talked about all the captains twice. I think it's time I probably talked about the vice captains, so we'll move on to that. And the vice captains, actually, a lot of them had really big moments during the final arc as well, so we'll probably move on to that next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking and Barry, signing out. Tati Butsu. Go fishing. It's a nice hobby.